For part 5, we have Rear Admiral Chuck Kubic, who actually did the negotiations with his Gaddafi counterpart for a type of ceasefire, step down kind of thing. What he says is very interesting.
By the way, if you haven't read the Accuracy in Media, the CCB's report, it's really an easy read because it's done in a narrative style. Although it's investigative, it has the facts and everything. It reads like a novel. I mean, it's a well-written bad novel. You know.
Good novel?
Well, it's right. Exactly. And also, if I might say again, a first impression about the Gowdy report, and I think as people read into it and particularly read his cover letter and listen to what he's saying, is that he saw as his job. I think I'm just interpreting what I see, to lay out the facts not only in a story form or as an investigation, but document the facts with either documents or sworn testimony and transcripts, which he hopes to eventually release. And in doing that, he said that he, number one, felt an obligation to the 4 Americans who lost their lives to tell the story, to put the facts out there. He also felt like it was important for the American people to understand the truth. And he also points out that there are unanswered questions because of questions that they've asked to the White House in particular that they haven't received an answer. So he kind of, at the end, leaves it open that there are still some unanswered questions. But his main point is that he's laid out the facts and he's asking the American people. He's asking the journalists. He particularly asked all the members of Congress to read the report. As Stephanie says, you can read it in one very focused day. And to then draw your own conclusions, because I think the one thing that he and the other members of the committee, felt, they have an undying respect for the American people, and that the American people can handle the truth no matter how difficult it is. And once they know the truth, they will be able to do the right thing, based on the facts as they see them. And that may lead to a debate. We're seeing it now in the different reports, and we've seen now a commentary being put out that is more narrative. But I think that that's really the challenge that Chairman Gowdy has put forth, is to read it, look at the facts yourself, connect the dots. To Roger's question, the one thing that jumped out at me, because I knew a lot of the information. When people say it's not new, well, we've been talking about it. Some of us have been inputting the information. Some of us lived it. But there was, something new. And as I hearken back when I was here 2 years ago, I spoke as a member of the panel, and I talked about my efforts at the onset of the war, specifically starting on March 19th, 2011, working actually with business colleagues who were talking with military, not with necessarily Gaddafi, his sons, the regime, but military officers who were basically looking for a way to encourage the abdication of Gaddafi, and basically wanted a ceasefire to be able to negotiate that. And we basically worked through a 72-hour truce. We had basically the conditions of the truce laid out, agreed to. There had been shows of good faith on both parties. And this was going to be between opposing military commanders pursuant to the law of war under a white flag. And we had everything worked out over 3 days of very, active back and forth negotiation through intermediaries, working with Africa Command and with the military that was immediately around Gaddafi. And we got to the point on the 22nd of March where everything was set except for exactly when it was going to be and whether we would hold the talks afloat on a ship, either off the coast or in the harbor, or ashore on the former U.S. Air Base at Wheelus Air Base, which is right there in Tripoli. When I was trying to work those details, I was told that it was called off. And I asked to speak with General Ham because we were very, very close to stopping the fighting. And they told me it wasn't General Ham that made the decision. I said, well, I'm here in Virginia. I'm headed to the Pentagon. Who do I need to talk to? They said, wasn't the Pentagon. And so, and I said, well, I need to do something. And they said, Admiral, we recommend you just let it go. And I found out, eventually that it was Secretary Clinton working directly with the Joint Chiefs of Staff who had shut down not that truce talk, but it shut down a parallel one that I didn't even know was happening through a different, business channel. What was new in the report this time that I never knew about the 7:30 White House meeting that happened between the meeting where Secretary Panetta met with the President at 5 o'clock, and we knew that there was a communication between Secretary Clinton and the President at 10 o'clock. Didn't know about the 7:30 meeting. And there's lots being talked about that and the action items that came after it. But the one thing that struck me was it was a deputies meeting, but Secretary Clinton was participating. And in her participation, she fundamentally obstructed the direct order of the Commander-in-Chief, because President Obama had ordered the Secretary of Defense to launch a rescue mission, do whatever is necessary. The Secretary of Defense had given not a be prepared to order, not a warning order, he had given an execute order. And when they went to talk about that, there was a whole series of obstacles that were put in the way, obstructing it. So it struck me that the same behavior that shut down the 72-hour truce at the onset of the war, leading to death, destruction, a failed state, was the same pattern of behavior that existed in that 7:30 meeting. That was new to me. The second thing that was new, ironically, we never did, even as Chairman Gowdy said, even have wheels turning towards Benghazi throughout the whole attack. But when it came to rescuing our Americans, realized there were still close to 30 Americans there, even with the loss of life. It was actually Libyan military intelligence officers who had been part of Gaddafi's military, who actually were in hiding in Benghazi, who actually got the heavy weapons, the vehicles, and came to rescue our people. It wasn't Libya Shield, it wasn't 17th of February Martyrs Brigade, it were these officers who we had deposed, who in a sense of humanity, I guess, came and rescued our people. Otherwise, there is a good chance they would have all been massacred. So those two were fundamental new things that I learned only by connecting the dots that Chairman Gowdy laid out there. So I would basically say to the members of the press, read it, connect your own dots, make your own conclusions, because I think that's what we're intended to do.
Are you saying, though, I want to make sure I understand you, that Secretary Clinton derailed President Obama's order to rescue?
I'm saying the word obstructed, because they were there to basically, the orders were given by the Secretary of Defense at 7 p.m. This meeting was convened at 7:30. We've been talking about why weren't they followed. In that meeting, if you look at it, although there was a lot of talk about the video and everybody's reporting on it, the substance of the meeting was the Department of State representatives, led by Secretary Clinton, who put all the obstacles in the way, including the need for the country clearance, all of these things. We've heard, and this is all laid out, this isn't me, I read all of this in the report, is that the Secretary had the authority to grant those right there if they were needed. And so why it then caused all the delay, why people didn't move, I think fundamentally was the result of that 7:30 meeting. Based on the way I connect the dots. Other people may connect them differently, but it was clear to me there was a meeting, she was the senior person there, the State Department threw the roadblocks up, and the direct order to deploy was obstructed and didn't happen for some 18 hours, later. And that was new to me. So that's what I learned, along with all the things I learned here today. So thank you.
Were your truce negotiations mentioned in the Gowdy report?
No, because he didn't go back that far. I think they're mentioned, they were certainly mentioned in the interim report that we did 2 years ago.
Not the Gowdy report.
And I believe they're here, but he didn't go back to the beginning.
Okay.
You know, and that's one of the things that this report has done, is it's basically gone back, and I think Roger said, put it into context. You know, so I wasn't mentioning it, to the best of my knowledge. I may have missed a word or two, but I.